Hey everyone, and welcome back to Notebook Summaries. We're diving into our Quick Countries Histories playlist again, and this time we are tackling the incredible story of Sweden. Man, what a history. Let's just jump right in. So here's the big question, right? The one that kind of frames everything we're about to talk about. How on earth does a fierce warrior empire become this global symbol of peace and neutrality? I mean, it's a wild transformation from a military powerhouse that basically terrified its neighbors to a beacon of non-alignment. How did they do it? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Okay, so to really get the Sweden we know today, we've got to go way back. And I mean way back to its pretty dramatic and often violent beginnings. This first part of our story is all about Sweden's amazing rise from just scattered tribes to a seriously formidable European empire. So where does this story start? Well, like a lot of stories from this part of the world, it starts with the Vikings. But here's a cool thing. While a lot of Norsemen went west, the Swedes, they mostly went east. They set up these huge trade networks that went all the way to Constantinople. Fast forward to about the year 1000, and you see the two main Swedish lands finally uniting. And then, by 1397, Sweden joined something called the Kalmar Union. This was basically one giant kingdom that brought Sweden, Denmark, and Norway all under a single king. Though, let's be honest, it was pretty much run by Denmark. Yeah, but that whole Kalmar Union thing, it was never really a happy marriage, especially for the Swedes. The tension was just bubbling under the surface for more than 100 years, until 1520, when it just completely exploded. The Danish king at the time, Christian II, he arranged for a mass execution of Swedish nobles right in Stockholm. And that one brutal act, that was the final straw. It was the spark that lit the fuse on a rebellion that would literally create modern Sweden. And who was the guy leading this rebellion? A man named Gustav Vasa. And you really can't overstate his importance. He is hands down the founder of modern Sweden. What's so fascinating here is how he did it, step by step. First, boom, he declares independence in 1523. Next, he breaks away from the Catholic Church. And this wasn't just about religion. It was a power move, a financial one. He seized all the church's land, which was a mind-boggling 21% of all farmland in the country, and used it to bankroll the new state. And with all that cash, he built one of Europe's first modern armies, complete with a slick new tax system to pay for it all. The stage was set. And with that foundation in place, Sweden didn't just hang on, oh no, it absolutely thrived. The 1600s became known as Sweden's Stormarkstiden, which literally means the age of greatness. And they earned that name. They won a whole series of wars against pretty much everyone around them, Denmark, Russia, Poland, and became the undisputed champion of Northern Europe. And this right here, this is what makes that achievement so insane. We're talking about a country with a population of just over 1 million people. 1 million. And with that tiny population, they managed to take control of the entire Baltic region. Now you have to understand, this wasn't just empty land. This was Europe's main pipeline for stuff everyone needed: grain, iron, timber. They were punching so far above their weight class, it's just incredible. But you know how these stories go, right? What goes up must come down. And as we see so many times in history, a super fast rise can lead to a fall that's just as dramatic. The very same ambition that built this incredible empire, yeah, that was going to be the thing that tore it all down. So the year is 1700. Sweden's neighbors, Russia, Denmark, Norway, and Poland, Lithuania, they've had it. They're tired of being pushed around. So they form this secret coalition and launch a massive surprise attack. And just like that, the Great Northern War kicks off. This thing would drag on for more than 20 years and completely change the map of Northern Europe. And right at the center of this epic conflict is the Swedish king, Charles XII. Now, this guy was a brilliant military commander, no doubt about it. He won some absolutely spectacular battles in the early days, but he was also reckless. Instead of securing his wins, he got obsessed with this idea of completely crushing Russia. He launched this incredibly ambitious and ultimately disastrous invasion. And that's the key takeaway here. His own ambition, his overreach, is what turned what could have been a victory into a catastrophic defeat. And wow, this really shows you the brutal aftermath. Just look at this. On the left, you've got the empire at its absolute peak, this huge territory. And on the right, what was left after 1721? They lost all their most valuable provinces along the Baltic Sea to a rising, powerful Russia. Their chokehold on trade? Gone. The reign as a great European power? Over. Just like that. In about 20 years, the Swedish Empire was history. Losing an empire like that, I mean, that's a national trauma, a huge identity crisis. But it also forced Sweden to do something pretty amazing. They had to pivot, hard. Their great power status was gone, so they had to figure out a whole new way to exist in the world, a whole new identity. And that pivot, it starts with maybe one of the weirdest help-wanted king stories in all of European history. Seriously. Their own royal family was dying out, and they needed a new heir to the throne. So who do they pick? One of Napoleon's own top generals, a Frenchman named Jean Bernadotte. I mean, think about that. By choosing a Frenchman, they were basically signaling to everyone, we're done with the old fights. They were charting a completely new course. And this new dynasty, started by Bernadotte, led Sweden into its last ever war in 1814. And after that, nothing, just peace. Check out this timeline. They navigate their way through World War I, staying neutral. They do it again in World War II, one of the few countries in Europe to manage that. They build this new identity around non-alignment that would define them for the next 200 years. So while this story of peace is happening on the outside, there's a whole other revolution happening on the inside. With the age of empire over, Sweden turned its focus inward. It started working on building a new kind of society, one that would become famous all over the world. And the core idea, the big vision for this new society, was called Folkhemmet. That translates to the people's home. And the idea is actually pretty simple but really powerful. It's the idea that the entire country should function like a good home for all its citizens, a place built on equality, on cooperation, where everyone looks out for each other. This became the literal blueprint for the modern Swedish welfare state. Okay, so that's a great vision, but how do you actually make it happen? Well, the secret ingredient was political stability. Just look at this chart. The Social Democratic Party was in power for 44 years. Straight. Think about that. No other major party got a look in. That incredible, unbroken run in government gave them the time and the power to build the people's home, piece by piece, creating that famous social safety net that everyone knows Sweden for. And all of that, it brings us right up to today. And to the final and maybe most dramatic twist in this whole story. Because after 200 years of peace, 200 years of neutrality, a series of shocking world events have forced Sweden to once again completely rethink its role in the world. And what's so interesting here is that this wasn't a sudden flip. It was a gradual evolution. You can see it right here. After World War II, they joined the UN. But then, during the Cold War, they make a point of not joining NATO. Big statement. Then in 1995, they take another big step and join the European Union. But the final, historic break, the moment that ended 2 centuries of policy, came in 2024. In response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Sweden officially joined NATO. The era of military non-alignment was over. So, that leaves us with this massive question, doesn't it? A nation that built its entire modern identity, its prosperity, its whole brand on staying out of military alliances has now jumped in with both feet. What does that mean for Sweden's future, for the balance of power in all of Northern Europe? It's a completely new chapter, and it's being written right now as we speak. And that is our whirlwind tour through the history of Sweden. What a story, right? Hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, we've got a whole playlist of quick country histories just like it that I think you'll love. And of course, make sure to subscribe to Notebook Summaries so you don't miss any more explainers that cut through the noise.